I have trauma. You have trauma. My cat has trauma. This person standing right off screen here, they have trauma. I hope you get better soon. But the thing which has been on everybody's minds recently is, should you share your traumas in public? Because, well, I'll not get ahead of myself. I'll explain the context for this and why this is a topic. Going on the Twitters, I came across this tweet. So the tweet's no longer available, which makes it tricky. The person's account is gone. I don't know what happened to them. So I'll just have to try to explain what the tweet was, and you just use your imagination and all that stuff. Okay, so what the tweet said, man. This video making stuff is hard. I forgot. The tweet basically said, you should not share your traumas in public, because then it is manipulative, basically. It is nefarious. You've got a plan, you're trying to achieve something, you're trying to do something to people's minds. If you, for example, were the victim of a sexual assault and then you came out in public and said, I was sexually assaulted, that would have an agenda, and that would be trying to manipulate people in some way. That's pretty much what the tweet said. The internet reacted by saying, delete this, wow, this is an extremely terrible take. And I agree, because when you think about it, even if you want to judge people like they're all triggered and sensitive snowflakes in this current age where, oh, everyone's so PC about everything. When you really think about trauma, well, I'm doing this so much with my hands here, just, you know, gesticulating. The entire human history of art, and doing this again. So many of the great works of art have been inspired by trauma. Even like the story of Jesus, the entire idea of a sacrifice by the Son of God for man is based on a trauma of crucifixion, which is horrendous. And we're supposed to remember that and think Jesus died for our sins. It's all based around a traumatic event. You think about all the great movies, Shawshank Redemption, or Saving Private Ryan, or I was gonna say Indiana Jones. Don't know how that's based on trauma. But so many films and movies based on trauma. Shakespeare is all based around traumas, around terrible things that have happened to human beings being expressed in public, the human experience.
In this, though I cannot be said to be a flattering, honest man, it must not be denied, but I am a plain-dealing villain. If I had my mouth, I would bite. If I had my liberty, I would do my liking. Whoa.
It all sort of comes together to say to me that sharing traumas in public is a positive thing. It's also contributed so much to human society. We needed people to share those traumas in order to be able to make some kind of progress in society, and I think it's only the very, very cynical or people who have some sort of other agenda, like preventing progression in society, who would be against trauma. And even then, as I've said, so many plays and films, autobiographies and movies and music is based around trauma. Alice in Chains, one of my favorite bands of all time. Their songs are based around the horror of drug addiction. And Rooster, that entire song was born of the trauma of Vietnam and how it affected Jerry Cantrell's family and his upbringing and his own father. He could have just shut up about it, been like, shouldn't talk about trauma in public because then I'm manipulating everybody. Like, so much has been born from it. I'm sorry I couldn't think of more and better examples, but, you know, you just add them to the comment section and I'll pretend like I thought of them myself.
Jim! How could you have done this? Jim! I can't believe you committed suicide. I cannot believe you committed suicide. How could you have done this? How could you have committed suicide? I can't help you out of this one, Jim.
Is that to say there's no conceivable situation in which somebody might share their traumas for manipulative ends? No, of course not. If you see someone who has been accused by tons of people of being an abuser and then they say, I was abused as a child. I mean, in the context of talking about whether that person did something like sexually abuse somebody else, bringing that up would be very suspect and potentially manipulative. So I could see how that could be a possibility. Or if someone's trying to make a bigoted or atrocious or terrible point about somebody else or insult somebody or just put out a bad point of view into the universe and then turn around and say, I'm really traumatized because this happened in my childhood. That's clearly like a type of manipulation of your trauma. But this tweet was like a hard and fast rule, like you cannot share it in public because that's manipulating people, and it just doesn't make sense when you step back from the trees and see the forest. That has only had a positive effect on almost every area of society. Even just victims being able to speak out about the horrible things that they've been through. How is that not positive? You know, I just don't understand it. And I think people using it for nefarious means would be so in the minority. How did this actually come up? Well, let me tell you. Don't know how to transition to the next point here. Well, it turns out it's political. Dun, dun, dun. Dramatic. No one could have known. No one! But there's a congresswoman called Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, commonly known as AOC. She is a US House of Representatives representative from New York's 14th District. She assumed office on January 3, 2019. AOC, as I'll refer to her, has become quite famous for being very progressive. She's young, she's progressive, she wants big government ideas and to give money to everybody, and flirted with socialism. She's kind of simpatico with Bernie Sanders. She represents this kind of new, young wave of congresspeople on the left, the sort of progressive tendency to try to treat others with respect and dignity, help minorities and different groups that are discriminated against, providing for the poor, basically being modern-day Mother Teresa.
This bitch!
She endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2019.
I had been working 12-hour days. I didn't have health insurance. I was being paid less than a living wage, and I didn't think that I deserved any of those things. I thought that that's just how life was. The only reason that I thought running for office was even possible for me was because of his example, because he proved that you could run for office and not take big money.
I hate the bitch.
People in some circles were not happy about that. She's not white, she's very young, she's a woman, all of those good things. And another thing that stands out about her is that she came from a working class background. She didn't grow up with a lot of money. She worked as a bartender, just working an everyday job, struggling to get by, didn't own a house or have expensive things, and certainly had much less money than her Democratic challenger, Joe Crowley. She commented later after coming to Washington, she was just very shocked by this lifestyle. It was hard for her to understand this concept of having money, or having a decent place to live, or having a big salary and being able to afford things. That was very jarring for her, and that's quite refreshing. And people were mocking AOC for kind of being out of touch with having money. And that's just ridiculous. Why should representatives be super rich? How does that make them understand what everyday people are going through? How does that adhere them to what people need? I suppose for those intersecting reasons of identity and progressive beliefs, she's become kind of a lightning rod for hate from the right wing. They're really fanatical about her to a point that's a little bit disturbing. It's like they're completely obsessed with this individual person, like they are one of the most powerful people in Congress, even though she's not. She's just really popular on social media, and that's a big scary problem for them because she's an influencer.
I'm a man, therefore I am catcalling her, even though as an Orthodox Jew I have never catcalled a woman in my entire life. It's catcalling because I guess if I suggest that I want to have a conversation, I'm demanding a response. Well, every request is a request. All she had to say here was, nah. That would have been fine. I mean, she's got that prerogative, but she goes around talking about how...
I mean, that's part of a platform,
absolutely.
Right? Everybody's a victim, and you know, we need to take as much money as we can from everybody else to redistribute it. That's what socialism is about. So is she just playing that victim card?
No question. And the fact that she feels the necessity to go to this particular card, right, to play the I'm a female and therefore I'm being victimized, this is like catcalling. The fact she goes there, instead of just saying, you know what, I'm not interested in debate, the reason she didn't say the latter is because she didn't want to look like she was afraid.
Two wild and crazy guys. Nah, I'm just kidding. How you doing? Good? Nice dress. You look beautiful.
Fox News and all of these right-wing outlets obsess over her, never stop going on and on about, she said this kooky thing, and she misspoke about something, and this is something that she doesn't fully know about, and she made a mistake when she was talking about it. AOC is so stupid.
Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also just, I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
That's for sure. Joining me now, Fox News contributor Tommy Lair. Now, Tommy, you and I have been in situations where I'm sure we don't really know exactly what we're talking about, but we're able to fudge it, and we can wing it and at least pretend to kind of have a semblance of knowledge about the subject. You never throw your hands up and you say, I'm not an expert.
There's a certain tenor to the obsessive hatred of AOC that I personally don't understand. I mean, I could kind of get it from the right, but this video is actually more about it coming from the left. On January the 6th, 2021, there was the Capitol riots. MAGA Donald Trump supporters were told by Donald Trump to go to the Capitol to prevent the counting of the electoral votes, which would officially make Joe Biden president, and they did his bidding and went there and then smashed some windows and roamed all throughout Congress looking for congresspeople, going into their offices, shouting and screaming. That eventuated in 5 people dying in different ways, including one police officer who was bludgeoned to death with a fire extinguisher. AOC did a live stream where she talked about what happened in the Capitol from her perspective. She talked about how scared she was, and she talked about her trauma. She also talked about the fact that she is a survivor of sexual assault or abuse.
These folks who tell us to move on, that it's not a big deal, that we should forget what's happened, or even telling us to apologize, these are the same tactics of abusers. And I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And I haven't told many people that in my life. But when we go through trauma, trauma compounds on each other. And so whether you had a negligent or, a neglectful parent, or whether you had someone who was verbally abusive to you, whether you are a survivor of abuse, whether you experience any sort of trauma in your life, small to large, these episodes can compound on one another. There's no, something really big happening to you, and then you deal with it, and then you move on, and then when something else happens to you, you deal with that, and then you move on. All of our experiences make us who we are. And that's also to say that most people live with trauma. And it's not to, and that doesn't even diminish, any of the trauma that any one of us may have been through. But it is to say that there is a community of so many people who can understand.
This caused the right wing and some of her obsessive left wing haters to just completely lose their shit and start going on and on and on about how fake she is and how manipulative she is, that she's a huge liar about what happened at the Capitol. 3 people in particular that I'm going to focus on in this video are Glenn Greenwald, Dore, and Tim Pool. Glenn Greenwald is a famous journalist who's done a lot of good work in the past, including elevating Edward Snowden, who exposed the NSA surveillance state going on in the US. Has worked with Julian Assange in his earlier days to expose war crimes. Dore is known as a progressive left-wing host of the Dore Show, used to be on TYT or the Young Turks, and then went in his own direction. And he's particularly focused on criticizing the Democrats, the DNC establishment, and also being anti-war. Those are kind of his two big things. Not so much criticizing the Trump administration because, you know, I looked through his videos recently and there was not a lot of material about that. It's mostly about Democrats. And the third is Tim Pool. I'm Tim, so there's going to be a bit of Tim on Tim violence going on in this video. But I want to start with the first two because conveniently, Jimmy Dore interviewed Glenn Greenwald and they talked about this very topic. I'm not going to play the entire thing. I may have cut some bits out. I'm keeping it in context because I'm a very honest man. And if you don't believe me, you can just go watch the original interview, which I'll link below. So I'm even sending traffic to Jimmy Dore. Not that he needs it. I'm the one who needs it. Now, just as a small pre-comment, Jimmy Dore is very obsessed with attacking AOC because AOC thought that forcing a floor vote in the Congress on Medicare for All wasn't necessarily a good idea, so she didn't really support that. I suppose on tactical grounds, but according to Jimmy, it's because she's trying to get between you and healthcare.
And this is to keep you from healthcare. That's what this is. This is to keep you from healthcare because she's a gutless wonder who will not do what she promised. And you don't get her to do what you want her to do by being fucking nice to her. You get her to do what she's supposed to do by ripping her to shreds, which is what I'm doing right fucking now because she has it coming. And it's not just her. They all do. She's the only one engaging on Twitter, which is why she's getting it. I originally went after Mark Pocan. Mark Pocan's too big of a coward to engage. She's dumb enough to engage when she doesn't have a good reason. But I bet the squad decided that she would go out there because she's the most popular, and then people could say, you're attacking her. People who work for NATO, can say I'm attacking her. Instead of what we're supposed to do, hold one of the most powerful people in the world to account. This is her outing herself as a gaslighting motherfucker. She might as well be Newt Gingrich because that's what this is. You're broken because you're corrupted and co-opted. And now we got to lay on you as hard as we can. And you're going to get a bunch of sycophants on YouTube who protect you, who take money from NATO.
Because she did that, and also previously he was very negative about her, she's like a terrible person, basically a right-winger and not progressive. Just fucking awful. Jimmy Dore had Glenn Greenwald on his show, and the topic turned to AOC.
This week has been like the most amazing week of having the left and the right unite against Wall Street. Almost everybody across the spectrum supports what those Redditors are doing and is thrilled to see these hedge fund leeches suffering. And it has it's created a major opportunity to regulate, to legislate, to reform. And Ted Cruz, whatever you think of him, reached out by saying, I agree with AOC about this. So that was an opportunity for right and left to join together to do something that supposedly her main reason for existing as a political figure, which is fighting income inequality. And instead she turns around and says, fuck you, I don't want to work with you. You guys got me murdered. You're a white supremacist. And suddenly the two camps divide again. And over here you have the red team and over here you have the blue team cheering like morons at a fucking high school football game again because she ruined that movement because all she wants to do is attack Republicans and fortify the Democratic Party. That is what the left has become, and they know it. And that's why all that's left for them to do is do things like talk about your personality and occasionally mine.
There was a whole bunch of conversation before this about different topics. One of the things he talked about was how people on the left just want to focus on drama rather than talking about things like healthcare for all and inequality and wars and all of the serious things going on in the world. People like me just want to focus on these small issues to do with personalities and interpersonal bickering rather than talking about things that are actually important. But I think this is an important topic. The ability of victims, whether you think AOC is one or not, to talk about their personal traumas is a very big thing. If you think it's not important, well, what about all of the people in society who commit suicide because they've been abused and they can't talk about these things? That is a very important thing, and it's an integral aspect of intergenerational poverty and how these things lead to people having lives that they can't get out of because they've got such toxic, negative trauma. To say that this is just drama when they should be talking about important things is just a thing called relative privation, where you say, you're talking about trauma and abuse, mental suffering, and the things that people go through in their lives, being triggered, and talking about terrible things that have happened to you in your life. Well, that means you don't care about healthcare, and you don't care about inequality, and you don't care about so-and-so, when it's just, I think AOC didn't agree with their idea of force the vote. if it wasn't going to work and it wasn't going to achieve anything except make people hate AOC and the progressives even more so that they're less effective. But this video is not about that whole strategy. People have their own opinions on that. Ironically, I think a lot of what they're saying is based on a sort of AOC derangement syndrome, because otherwise they would see that it's perfectly logical to think Ted Cruz...
I gotta say, Orlando is awesome. It's not as nice as Cancun. But it's nice.
Despite his fellow Texans suffering, freezing, going hungry, some of them even dying, Senator Ted Cruz last night flew to Cancun, Mexico for a family vacation. There were pictures of him at the airport and on the plane that popped up on social media.
Somebody who has never stood against Wall Street, someone who's extremely corrupt, who's part of the GOP Republican establishment, who has done massive tax cuts and deregulation, who has supported Donald Trump, whose Treasury Secretary was Steve Mnuchin from Goldman Sachs, which Ted Cruz never once complained about, and supported all the giveaways and deregulations to the rich, and who only weeks previously tried to challenge and overturn counting of the electoral votes for Joe Biden, drumming up all of these radical, rabid followers to storm the Capitol building, putting AOC's life in danger, is not just riding a kind of populist wave of the fact that everybody agrees the Redditors taking on Wall Street, and, you know, it's a whole other story I'm not talking about here, is a good thing. So he says, oh, I want to side with AOC. This is a place where lots of populism lies, and I just want to exploit this because I'm a really unpopular douchebag of a guy. All I've ever done is support Wall Street and do everything I can to shaft everyday people, and this is a way for me to pretend like I actually give a shit about anything. So, oh, I really want to work with AOC, and then she says, well, fuck you, you tried to get me killed. The fuck you, you try to get me killed point, I mean, while being true, is not actually the main point there. The main point is, he's a fucking liar, he doesn't want to do shit, and then that works on Glenn Greenwald. He suddenly says, there could have been this fantastic left-right alliance of AOC and Ted Cruz to regulate Wall Street? No fucking way. Ted Cruz's entire ideology is about deregulation. That just means that he can manipulate somebody like Glenn Greenwald, because he's got AOC derangement syndrome, into thinking that Ted Cruz is the good guy, but AOC isn't. Where's the logic and rationality and reason in that? There's just some sort of obsession with criticizing and being angry at AOC. If, you know, you're not going to listen to AOC's reasons as to why she didn't want to do force the vote, but you're going to take Ted Cruz at face value. Really. And then pretend like what you actually have at heart is progressive principles. So this is just a bad tendency on the left based on resentment, in my opinion. Moving on.
I do believe that, like, AOC was genuinely rattled by what happened at the Capitol. She is the target of right-wing media in a pretty demonizing way. I'm sure it was, like, unsettling to have these mobs running through the Capitol. You have no idea if they're armed, what their intentions are. I'm sure that was scary. She made it through completely unscathed, not an even tiny little bruise on her body. Every other member of Congress in the Democratic caucus, including Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib and others, are equally demonized. And they're fucking over it. They got over it. If you want to be a member of Congress, you can't constantly center your own, like, lived experiences. You're not there to, like, center yourself in every drama. If you have an opportunity to strike a blow against Wall Street and the massive inequality and suffering that it causes, you don't have the right to refuse to do that because you're, like, angry and irritated by one of your colleagues. That's not what you're there for. That's, like, what high school is for. So I do want to just note, I believe that she was, like, genuinely alarmed by what happened, but it's time for her to move past that.
I agree. It's like she's being hyperbolic around this issue to cover for her failure of force to vote. She wants so desperately to change the subject, and I think she has. And her enablers in the media at The Intercept will help her change the subject, and will also help her change the subject to be about my personality and my choice of swear words, instead of them actually abandoning people and literally killing them by not giving them health care.
There's this idea of gaslighting, which is when somebody tries to convince you of a different reality than what is actually occurring in order to fool you into thinking that you're insane or crazy. And this is exactly what Jimmy Dore seems to be doing here. He's saying she's just trying to do all of these things to not support healthcare. And Glenn Greenwald says she's just angry and annoyed at Ted Cruz because she's irritated by something he did that seemed a little bit mean to her, but you know, she's got to get over that because this is not high school. When what Ted Cruz actually did was try to overturn an election and demonize his political opponents to the point that it would drum up hatred in Trump supporters so much that they would want to kill AOC and kill Mike Pence, their own vice president, and kill Nancy Pelosi. That is what, you know, that's just not like a high school drama. And then rushing the Capitol, trying to destroy democracy. I mean, I know people say, well, it didn't succeed or what have you, but does that mean that it wasn't an insane event which was egged on by people in Congress? And then saying AOC should just get over that. That was like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And she had this opportunity to do this huge thing to take on Wall Street. What huge thing? Work with Ted Cruz to do what? What does Ted Cruz even want to do? What was the policy? What was the idea? What supposedly would they be joining forces on? I haven't heard of anything. I haven't seen anything about what that would be. Just her saying, right on, Ted. Right on. Let's do it. Let's take on Wall Street together. That's not a policy. Like, what? She said that they should investigate Robinhood, which is a stock trading application, as to why they shut down trading of GameStop stocks. I don't want to get into the whole stock thing, but hedge funds were not prevented from trading those stocks and manipulating them as they please. She wanted to investigate that because she's part of the financial committee. Ted Cruz said fully agree that he agrees to having hearings. Why does she need Ted Cruz's co-signing on that? He's not a member of the financial committee. He's never done anything to take on or regulate Wall Street. In fact, Ted Cruz has fundraised off Wall Street. Report, US Senator Ted Cruz helped donors Texas fracking company get pandemic relief money. A Texas fracking company owned by billionaire Republican donors got a $35 million government pandemic relief loan this spring, according to a report in the Wall Street Journal. Skipping down, key to the loan application, US Senator Ted Cruz, Republican Texas, whose campaigns have been a major benefactor of the Wilkes largesse, and who helped convince the Trump administration and the Federal Reserve to change the rules for pandemic loans to ensure oil and gas firms could participate, the Journal reported. An article here, how Goldman Sachs is still indirectly supporting Ted Cruz despite stopping political donations. Ted Cruz's wife, Heidi Cruz, serves as a managing director in Goldman Sachs' Houston office. He's even married to someone from Goldman Sachs. What do you expect this guy to do? All he's doing is co-signing on it to piggyback on AOC's popularity. Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy Dore take that at face value because they hate AOC. It's as simple as that. She doesn't need to give Ted Cruz her credence. Wow, that's great, Ted. Thanks a lot. Let's forget all about you trying to have me killed, and also let's forget about your political positions and the way that you've been on Wall Street.
And AOC is telling us she was murdered. She was murdered. She was murdered.
You are weird. Glenn Greenwald is meant to actually be, at least I've heard, critical of people in positions of power like Ted Cruz, not just mindlessly bashing on AOC. A couple of other points to this. I don't think it's intentional on Glenn's behalf, but it's just really disturbing when he says she made it through without a single bruise on her body. Is that the only thing that matters about something terrible happening to you, is whether you get hurt? That's kind of a needlessly uncaring and indifferent and unempathetic point of view. I don't know what the purpose of that is. You certainly don't need to be completely unfeeling about the pain and trauma that people have been through to be, for example, a journalist covering the atrocities of war. In fact, wouldn't that make you more mindful of those things, to say, look at the trauma which has occurred to these families when their loved ones were killed in a drone strike? You wouldn't say, well, they weren't hit by a missile and they weren't blown up, so why are they spending so much time whining and sharing their lived experience about how their loved ones were incinerated at a wedding? No, you didn't get hit by the drone. It was just some other person. So what's with all of this lived experience stuff? Any country, any politician, anywhere, their lived experience is going to inform what they do because they're humans. And you could say, well, it shouldn't. They should just be unfeeling machines. That's not going to happen. So I think I just find this very cynical of Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy Dore. And it's got absolutely nothing to do with the important issues that they talked about otherwise in the interview. I just think it's important to call out double standards such as AOC is full of shit but Ted Cruz can be listened to, and a sort of mean kind of gaslighting that you are doing this for a nefarious, terrible reason with no particular evidence of that except that you don't like the person. It's really like lopsided because the anger and the rage is so much more intense than the begrudging credit, because they don't want to give credit to her for anything. They just have this bizarre hate for her. It's very hard for me to understand. You could say it's because she's a politician, but they're not doing this to other politicians. And then they say, oh, it's just to clean up their own side. But why would you be so much angrier at people on your side than the people who are actively against the things you believe, even if you think that someone like AOC is going about it in a way that you don't like? And what it says about sharing trauma, I guess, is just some people are going to hate you for it, no matter how you talk about it, and no matter what you do. That's also quite a negative trend. I think it's useful for people to hear these stories and relate them to their own lives and themselves and be able to feel like there's somebody who's been through what they've been through. But now let's talk about some skepticism about AOC and the fact that she is a massive liar. Why? Because she's evil. She just wants to do censorship, I guess. Even though she doesn't mention censorship in her video. She's bad. It's time to hear from journalist Tim Pool about his take on what happened with AOC. Now, before I start, I recommend again that you watch AOC's entire video about what happened from her perspective and her lived experience. The video itself provides all the information that you need in the context of what Tim Pool is about to talk about. Tim Pool says that if you go and watch AOC's stream in its entirety, that it proves that she's a liar and that she's just making everything up and it doesn't add up and it's all manipulated and just all fake and everything. But I had the opposite impression that if you watch her video, you can very clearly see that Tim Pool is misrepresenting and or misunderstanding what AOC has said. So let's get into it. Tim Pool's video is called "I Have Proof AOC Lied About Her Capital Story. It's way worse than you thought. Major update. What a liar! She's evil! Satan! So that's what his video is called. Let's have a look at what a big liar AOC is. She lies.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez definitively lied about what happened to her on January 6th.
She lied! This is huge. Let's watch.
I can prove it. So that's why I will say right now as a statement of fact.
A statement of fact. If you just say fact, it's a statement of fact. Then it's a fact because you said it that way. It's a statement of fact. Fact.
Ocasio-Cortez lied about what happened on January 6th. Again, this is not my opinion. I am asserting this as a statement of fact, fully exposing myself to any libel and defamation should it come about. But I know what I'm saying is true because I have evidence of this. I also have some conjecture and some personal opinions, but I can definitively show you that AOC is putting out lies.
What a wonderful way to start a video. Now, I watched this whole thing with Tim Pool, and I actually went into it with an open mind because I thought, I'm gonna see what his case is. Maybe he's got a point. If he's proven it as fact that AOC lied, that would be irrefutable. But after watching AOC's video, it becomes very apparent Tim Pool's video actually has nothing to do with anything that AOC actually said about what happened. Tim Pool's entire video is about this point of view that AOC is not putting across and that she never said. She doesn't know the exact timeline of events, she just had a sort of vague idea. She wasn't outside the Capitol building seeing all of this shit take place. She was inside her office building. And that's another point on which Tim Pool faceplants, obsessing over the fact that she was in her office building even though she admits she was in her office building. So how does that make her a liar? There's just things about this that don't make any sense, or that someone like Tim Pool would dedicate his life to this. You know, from Tim to Tim. It's time to take a chill pill, man. but I guess this is how you make your living.
And for those that aren't familiar with the story, AOC claims that a cop banged on her door, was yelling, "Where is she?" And she didn't know it was a cop, and she thought she was going to die. She said that we were evacuated because people were trying to infiltrate the building, a complete fabrication.
The first fabrication from Tim is, she said it had been infiltrated, or that they were trying to infiltrate the building. No, she didn't. She said she thought it had been infiltrated at the time because there was this big build-up to all of these MAGA Trump supporters being at the Capitol, and she knew that they were going to come to the Capitol. She said that, you know, it was all kind of predicted. She was told by the Capitol Police that they had it all sorted and she didn't have to worry about it. So she was just at her office building. When she heard the knocking of the police officers on the doors of the offices outside her own office, she had wondered or thought that the building had been infiltrated by Trump supporters. That's what she said, not what Tim asserted.
And we couldn't even tell, we couldn't read if like this was a good situation or a bad situation. It was so like, you know, like so many other communities in this country, like just that presence doesn't necessarily give you a clear signal if you're safe or not. And so the situation did not feel okay. And then he just looks at me and yells at me and he just go down and then go to this other building. I'm not gonna like name the specific building, but he basically says, go down and go to this building. But he just says the name of the building. Doesn't say anything else. But we're so rattled in that moment. And the situation felt so volatile with this officer that I run over, I grab my bag, and we just start running over to that building. I'm at like a 10. Right? Like I am at a full 10, fight or flight, thought I was going to die like 10 minutes ago, then thought I was going to die again, because I have to tell you that when I was banging on this door, I had thought, fully expected that by this point the building had been breached and there were people walking the hallways. Like this was what I had fully expected to be having been gone on in that moment. And so when we're outside in this hallway alone, I'm banging on this door and I'm thinking, and I'm fully expecting one of these insurrectionists to turn the corner with a gun and that it would be over.
Her perception was that the building had been infiltrated. That's what she thought at the time. At no point does she say it was infiltrated. That's just what she thought at the time.
She said that we were evacuated because people were trying to infiltrate the building. Jack Posobiec says AOC wasn't in the Capitol building during her near-death experience. She calls this right-wing manipulation and then says this: people were trying to rush and infiltrate our office buildings. That's why we had to get evacuated in the first place. That's not true. Based on my understanding, and I will say this as a statement of fact, that is not true. I have done the groundwork and the research, and to the best of my understanding, they were evacuated due to a bomb threat.
He basically says, go down and go to this building. But he just says the name of the building. Doesn't say anything else. We start getting intelligence that bombs have been found. One about like 1 block away from where we were, 1 or 2 blocks away from where we were, and then a second one like 3 blocks away from where we were. I'm also fully expecting, or maybe not expecting, but I'm wondering like, or feeling or preparing for one of the wings of the building to explode, because we had gotten intelligence that there were bombs found.
She's focusing it on herself with a fabricated story. First and foremost, AOC was not in the Capitol building. The Capitol building is what was actually raided. Snopes came to her defense saying it's false to claim she exaggerated. Actually, I can disprove this. They do say what's true. Ocasio-Cortez wasn't in the main Capitol building where the House and Senate chambers are located. What's false? When the attack on the Capitol began, Ocasio-Cortez was in her congressional office. Not true. Which is located in a network of office buildings immediately surrounding the Capitol. And her office building was one of the 2 buildings which were evacuated. Okay, hold on. They say when the attack on the Capitol began. All right, well, that's an opinion statement. We don't know exactly what constitutes an attack on the Capitol, because around the time AOC claims this story was happening, the only thing that had happened was that the crowd of individuals had walked past the first barricade. That's it. This wasn't a fight with the police. This wasn't pepper spraying and batons. It was literally people pushing on barricades, and the police opened up the barricades and they walked past. It was the outermost perimeter. I do not believe it's fair to call that an attack. I could be wrong, however. I believe the New York Times does show that there were clashes. So, okay, maybe. Let me slow down.
An attack? Well, I don't know if it was actually attack. Is it fair to call that attack? Because by this point, they weren't attacking. What the fuck kind of argument is this? It's like if you said, well, I was in the house and elsewhere in the house someone was being murdered, Tim Pool would come along and say, well, actually, you were not in that room when the person was being murdered. So that happened 2 minutes later. So because that happened a bit later, it's pretty dishonest to call that a murder. Why are you fabricating this story about this murder? No, like, the attack on the Capitol still happened. All of us saw it with our eyes. It existed. I can't believe the extent to which he will pass words and quibble and be pedantic just to try to defend these folks. Oh, no, actually, it was another 20 minutes before they started beating the police officers. It's so dishonest to call it an attack. And they didn't beat a police officer to death for another hour. And yet they're saying that there was a murder involved? Typical dishonest media, fake news.
AOC wasn't in the Capitol building. No one breached the Capitol building at the time of AOC's story. Now, I want to tell you why this is important. In a story from Vox, quote, "I thought I was going to die," AOC's harrowing account of the Capitol Hill attack. Her live post on Instagram shows why we can't just move on. And here's a quote. "In those few seconds, she contemplated death. Quote, I felt that if this was the journey my life was taking, I felt that things were going to be okay and that I had fulfilled my purpose," she said, apologizing to the viewers for the tears that had welled up. My God, the sociopathy, the sheer psychopathic behavior of this woman. I'm shocked.
What kind of sociopath, sick, disgusting person thinks that they're gonna die and then they're sad and they think, well, at least I did the best I could with my life? That's disgusting. She is the worst. I think she's so bad. Why does that show that she's sociopathic and lying? I guess I'm just not on Tim Pool's wavelength. When I read that and hear that, I just think, wow, it seems like it was pretty emotional for her. Sounds like she was having a tough time. But Tim Pool thinks sociopath. I can't say why that's his conclusion. That's the thing about a lot of these AOC haters, is I can't actually figure out what their obsession is with this person or why they hate her so much.
My friends, the other day I talked about how I didn't care about her story and I didn't care about her drama, and I respected that she was scared. Now I know she's lying.
Definitively.
Only a liar would be sad and worried, especially if they're a politician, then they're twice as lying. What a scumbag. Liar. Now Harris's big gotcha, his smoking gun proof that AOC was a liar. And I want you to remember that he said that they hadn't breached the Capitol building at 1 p.m. or whatever it was he was going on about, and how that's important. Notice how that's not important, because it doesn't contradict anything she has to say. And the only point that Tim Pool actually has here is just saying, oh, she got some of the times wrong. But how does that mean that everything was a lie, unless she was minutely keeping track of the time at the time and could see everything going on outside her office building?
All you had to do was watch the video to understand why she was lying. Now, here's what they say. At 1 p.m. on January 6th, Ocasio-Cortez remembers trying to decide what she wanted to eat for lunch. All of a sudden, she started hearing a series of loud bangs on the doors leading into her office. She runs over to an aide she refers to as G, her legislative director, Geraldo Bonilla Chavez, who tells her to run and hide. She takes shelter behind the bathroom door just before the pro-Trump attackers break into her office and make it clear they were coming for her. The pro-Trump attackers?
He says the pro-Trump attackers, because Vox is saying that they're pro-Trump attackers. That makes it seem like AOC was saying that pro-Trump attackers did come to her office. The fact of the matter is here that that's actually Vox misreporting it, because AOC never said that. She said she wasn't sure if the building, or was unsure, didn't know if the building had been infiltrated, and she had thought that the cop knocking on her door was a pro-Trump attacker, but it wasn't. It was a cop. So that's actually Vox misreporting this. Hopefully AOC is not being blamed for Vox's misreporting. I don't know if Tim's doing that. Maybe.
I just hear these yells of, where is she? Where is she? This is the moment she thought, this is the moment where I thought everything was over. I thought I was going to die. Soon afterwards, she said Bonilla Chavez told her to come out. A Capitol police officer was in the office to secure it, but she said something about the officer seemed off to her. He had no partner, hadn't identified himself. He yelled at her and didn't give them a specific location to take shelter. He was looking at me with tremendous amounts of anger and hostility. Things weren't adding up. I didn't know if he was there to help us or hurt us. Here's the important point. As I stressed to all of you, she says this happened at 1 p.m. The breaching of the outermost barricade took place at 12:53 p.m. So let's go through the facts. At 12:53, rioters violently overwhelmed the police and breached the Capitol's outermost barricade. Okay, so let me walk back my previous statement. According to the New York Times, they violently overwhelmed the police and breached the outermost barricade. They break through 3 more barriers, forcing officers back to the Capitol steps, where they now face off. At 12:58, Capitol Police in riot gear are seen arriving to reinforce the line of officers on the Capitol steps. At 1:03 p.m., Nancy Pelosi begins the joint session of Congress, where both chambers meet to certify the presidential vote. And there you have it, my friends. Oh, and I'm not done. There's a lot more. But AOC is claiming that she thought a pro-Trump mob broke through her door. She said, I thought they got in. I was thinking they got inside. She actually says this.
This is going on quite a bit. I'm sorry. And I don't have anything to say yet, but finally Tim Pool actually says something truthful here, that she was saying she thought that this happened. She wasn't saying that it did happen. So he's actually reporting this part truthfully, or at least correctly. So credit, I suppose. I'm going to have something to say in a moment. Okay, just a little bit more of this. I'm sorry.
Here's the tweet. I said at 1:01 p.m., in a building without security barricades, and 11 minutes before Trump finished speaking, AOC says she heard banging on her door and thought it was them getting inside. But this is an hour before anyone breached the Capitol building. Not only was she not in the building, the story she told happened an hour and 10 minutes before anyone breached the Capitol doors.
He's saying that the event that she describes happened like an hour before any barricades were breached. But he's debunked his own point. He's acknowledged that she wasn't in the Capitol building, she was in a different building, which means that the events which she describes could easily have taken place. This argument must be based around the crux of infiltrating the building and barricades and such. But she also talked about how the Capitol Police reassured her that the place was secure. So it all adds up to me that AOC's story actually makes sense. And this is just a desperate attempt to debunk the story of somebody who he dislikes because she's popular and has power. So she must be nefarious, and she's on the left and he hates people on the left. I don't know what his point of view is about victims, but it's not looking sunny in terms of how he treats people who have had a tough time, if this is how he reacts to it.
What kind of paranoid, delusional state are these people in when they hear a knock on their door, sure fine, a bang, 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 over and over again, and they assumed a mob of Trump supporters had broken in and were coming to kill them, and AOC says, well, at least I thought to myself I had fulfilled my purpose. Trump was still speaking. The crowd, the large crowd was still at the ellipse. Now, mind you, I know people had breached the barricades of the Capitol building. AOC claimed to Jack Posobiec that people were trying to breach other buildings as well. That's so what is she trying to claim with this? That the people who were breaching the barricades were trying to get in to her insecure, her building with no barricades. Perhaps. But it wasn't a riotous mob if that was the case, because it never happened.
Tim's trying to create some confusion about what the Capitol means. He keeps saying she wasn't in the Capitol building. She didn't know it was breached because she wasn't in the Capitol building. She was in the Cannon House office building. She never, ever said, not once, that she was in the Capitol building. In a video, she constantly says, I went to the Capitol, I was on the Capitol, I entered the Capitol, and all of that is technically correct and true. Colloquially, or in general, the grounds of the Capitol, which includes a number of different buildings, is referred to as the Capitol. So if somebody says, like, I entered the Capitol or I went to the Capitol, they're not necessarily talking about the Capitol building, which is like a separate thing. So I'm just going to try to figure out what the criticism he's making is. Wish me luck. AOC had said that the building had been infiltrated and something about it being breached, or the Capitol being breached, but there was no barricades around her building. So why would she say it was breached, which would mean that she's actually lying about it? But in the stream, AOC very clearly states that the Capitol Police assured her and other members that the Capitol was secure. So she may well have just gone back about her day thinking they've got it under control. They told her, and they told the other members, that they would secure the Capitol and that there wasn't going to be a problem.
I've warned about the escalation of violence, and even I did not think it was possible. Why would AOC think it was happening?
And the presence of her saying that in the stream, I think, renders this entire line of attack from Tim completely moot. AOC directly addresses it. And he could just say, well, I don't believe her or something. But you could say that about any point that she would have to make. The point here is not about whether you believe her, but about whether she lied, and she very clearly, directly addressed this.
One of the things that I would like us to dispel is the idea that this insurrection and this attack happened suddenly. That we couldn't see it coming, and that it was like just this outburst, and all of a sudden a bunch of people rushed the Capitol. I want to dispel with that notion very quickly, because everybody knew that something was going to happen. And a lot of these Republicans want to act like this all happened on Wednesday. But these people started coming on Monday. I started to get text messages that I needed to be careful. And that in particular, I needed to be careful about the 6th, including other members of Congress telling me that I need to be careful. Lots of people saying that violence is expected on the 6th. And there's just a waist-high parade fence, just one layer deep of it, by the way, not even multiple, just one little inky-dinky aluminum fence around. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird, but, maybe they plan on putting up more tomorrow because it is Monday, right? It's Monday. They're really expecting violence on Wednesday, so maybe they haven't put it up yet. Maybe it'll kind of come up tomorrow. But that thought was kind of coming into my head.
This video is already overly long. I got to go to bed because I got work in the morning. I don't really have anything deep to say. I should probably pre-plan my videos more so that I've really got some super point at the end that people can think that's really given me a lot of food for thought, and that is a really meaningful video essay that Mr. Demotivator has produced. Now I really understand the idea of X. X being how the capitalistic ideology of Adam Smith caused the Great Potato Famine of 1845 in Ireland, and the effects that has had on Marxist theory of production ever since. In the future, that's the video I'm going to make, and I'll get tons of plaudits. But until then, I'm just talking about personalities and people, man, because, I'm busy, and I just don't have the big brain power that all these online folks have. Sorry about that. I know you're looking to me for guidance, but I'm really trying to figure out what this whole thing is with Glenn Greenwald, Jimmy Dore. I mean, I know what Tim Pool is about. He's just a grifter. I think Tim Pool just has a vendetta against the left, and he just tries to cover for the right and does conservative talking points, but pretends like he's a journalist of some kind, and it's very effective because he gets so many viewers and it really works. And people think he's some kind of moderate or reformed lefty of some kind, but he's just doing coverage for the right-wing and conservative elements of the world. I often want to know more about people's motivation, and then you just can't really find out because it's kind of inexplicable to an extent. But I'm finding it even a bit more difficult to figure out Glenn Greenwald and Jimmy Dore to an extent, but I do think it is some sort of weird tough guy situation where they're saying, you know, you can't be a snowflake and lived experience and being triggered and all this shit just makes you weak. Tim Pool himself had some interesting thoughts about being tough and being strong.
AOC lived, I guess she was like upstate New York in the Bronx. Not the worst places in the world. I'm sure she has a general understanding of some kind of, you know, what the street life can be like or whatever, but she is absolutely soft. Again, I'm not saying this to be mean, okay? Come on. Like, we're not gonna sit here and pretend that AOC is a combat veteran or who has hostile environment training. Look, there's a reason I'm a fan of Tulsi Gabbard. She is a major in the National Guard. Plus, she's been just doing really, really awesome stuff in the past, you know, a couple of weeks, past month. She called out John Brennan and Adam Schiff as domestic enemies, and I'm just like, keep talking. I like it. But she's a major in the National Guard. I don't think she would be freaking out the situation. I don't want leaders in this country who are soft, wads of cookie dough, okay? I want people who are carved from stone.
You gotta be like savage and not give a fuck, especially if you're involved in politics. It's all about being strong and never showing vulnerability and being weak. Again, those things are perfectly healthy to see, and you know, it really all comes down to just what people are trying to do. And I understand people having criticisms of AOC saying she should be doing this policy, or she's not fighting for this, and we're disillusioned about this aspect. And sure, like, she's not fighting for certain issues about Wall Street enough, although I don't see why she should have to work with Ted fucking Cruz on that. But what is this whole thing of, oh, she's just talking about her lived experience and is so weak, she's gonna be tough like those people in the military, because when you're really military and super tough, then you say, we're gonna fight for healthcare, because all of those military people in the Republican Party, they're all about healthcare for everybody. They all fight for Medicare for all because they're strong, and they don't have lived experiences which are for weaklings. When you fight back against the system, you can't have empathy. You have to be really, really strong, because not being strong makes you a liar. You're trying to manipulate people, and people who don't have these kinds of traumatic experiences, they don't manipulate people because they're tough. Like, how is this a political ideology of any kind which has fidelity to progressive ideals and the things that we might want in a society? Caring about trauma. That's how we make change, yeah. Caring about trauma's badass. I'm strong. That's my very convincing strongman voice. I think the bottom line for all of this is people should feel comfortable sharing their traumas. You should definitely look at what people are trying to achieve by doing these things. But just because you don't like somebody's story doesn't mean you should make up all of their motivations and attempt to manipulate the information around what this person is actually talking about so that they're made out to be a liar. Instead of approaching somebody like this with a hypercritical lens to the point that you're raising the bar so impossibly high as to whether someone's telling the truth that victims could never get over that, because there's just too much skepticism about minor details, and that's the way that they treat people who have been sexually assaulted. There's books about rape culture, as they call it, and I'm just doing air quotes to make it a bit more of a comforting blow to hear those words for people who find those words offensive, because they think it just doesn't exist. How dare he say rape culture? I'm so angry. So don't worry, I put in air quotes for you folks that talk about the aura of skepticism around victims and the things that they face. And those people weren't politicians and powerful, but they still faced the exact same things that AOC has been facing, talking about her trauma and the things that have happened to her. We need to demystify the idea of trauma in the sense that there's no reason why that has to be partitioned from things that we do in our lives, including politics. It just seems completely arbitrary to me. It doesn't follow that the less responsive and receptive you are to trauma, the better policies you're going to make, the better reasoning you're going to have. In fact, having trauma might make you more likely to put forth something that's going to help more people, because you can understand the difficulty of that experience. People can disagree with that, and they can say that that's wrong. But what is their reasoning as to why that's wrong, besides emotions are bad? If you have feelings, you're wrong. Which is a point of view I never understood. It's just one of those things people say that they can't really back up because I guess it's from their feelings. Sorry I didn't end on a deeper note. Goodbye.